and welcome to church. My name is Courtney, and I'm going to tell you everything that's happening this week at River City. If this is your first time worshiping with us, welcome. We are so glad you're here. If you'd like to get connected with us, you can scan the QR code in the seat back in front of you, or you can meet us 15 minutes after service at the Info Hub. We can't wait to meet you.
Hey guys, it's Kendall from Current Youth. Come join us every Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m.
You can stay connected with us by following us on all of our social media and our website. Thank you so much for worshiping with us today. We know you could have been anywhere else and you chose to be here. Now can we all stand and give the Lord a hand clap of praise?
We've been in the book of James, and we've been really looking in, and today was supposed to be the last day, but I decided instead of bringing this all together, Dad, I want you to preach next week, because James wraps up the book there, and really a wisdom book. James is the brother of Jesus, half-brother of Jesus, and he wraps it up focusing in on faith. And when I tell you there's nobody better to preach faith than my dad, don't miss next week. It's going to be good, and I believe it. And I asked him, I said, Dad, I want you to wrap this up because, man, I want to see, there's some people that need a faith shift in your life. But it starts with this. It starts with an eternal attitude. Look at your neighbor and say eternal attitude. Now, last week I talked about my daughters and how when they're not listening, or they say, Dad, I tell them, hey, ask them, hey, what did I tell you about that? They look at me and say, oh, Dad, I'm sorry, I forgot. Y'all know what I like to say? I can help you remember. We know what that means. When I was a kid and my attitude got sideways, my dad used to ask me, son, I see your attitude's a little funky right now. Do you need an attitude adjustment? I think we all know what an attitude adjustment is. That's where you start hearing, no, Daddy, no. No, please, no. I don't want an attitude adjustment. But as I got ready for this week, I thought over and over again, God, I need an attitude adjustment in the spiritual side of things and in my mentality, in my thinking. And so this week, I hope this helps some of you guys. James 5:8 says, you too, be patient and stand firm. This is something we got to get a hold of this morning. I don't have to it's not all about how much I gain in life. No, sometimes I need to be patient. I need to stand firm because the Lord's coming is near. Look at your neighbor and tell him Jesus is coming. Now, half of the room heard that and said, yay. Half of the room heard that and said, nay. Why? Because, man, that makes me nervous. I remember as a kid losing sleep over that. Somebody would say, Jesus is coming. I would go home, lay down in bed, and all I could think about, he's going to come as a thief in the night. And I would think, oh, my God, it could be tonight. And I would start repenting of every bad thing that I had done. Well, Chris, what could you have done so bad as a kid? You know, when you're a kid, you have childlike faith, so you believe all of the word. You don't classify sins anymore, right? And so I'd start repenting about that white lie that I told Mom and Dad earlier today. You know, did you do this? No, I don't know who did it. Chris, you're the only child. It had to have been you because it wasn't us. I mean, you think about that. Being the only child, I have no one to blame. At some point, I'm like, the dog did it. You mean to tell me he got this down out of the top shelf? Yeah. Yeah, there's no one to blame. So I would end up in a situation where I'd lay in bed at night and I would worry so much about the return of Jesus. And there's some in the room that sounds good to you, and there's some in the room that think, oh man, that's scary. Today I want to help you with that. I hope I can help you have an eternal perspective on his return. Charles Spurgeon said this, unless we purposefully live with a view to the next world, we cannot make much out of our present existence. You want to do great things, live life as though there is more to this life. There's been a mindset that's slipped into the world, and I know it. That's where it's like, oh, all that religion stuff, it's just keeping people, you're just keeping them dumbed down. You're worried about the next and not worried about this one. Well, I'm going to show you something later today. It just so happens to be Christians who do the most work for good around this planet. C.S. Lewis said this. He said, aim at heaven and you will get earth thrown in. He said, aim at earth and you will get neither. You will get neither or neither to those of you who speak perfectly. What do you mean? If all I'm focusing on is what I can get here, I notice that a lot of people don't enjoy it. They think they do for a while. But if all I can gain is the stuff, then I've missed the point. Look at your neighbor and say, there's more. There's more to live for. So what do I do to have an eternal attitude? This morning, I want to try to help you understand the ingredients of an eternal attitude. Number one is this: our time is short. Look at your neighbor and say, your time is short. Now, look back at him and say, was that a threat? No, it's true. Our time is short. I've been doing the homework on that. If an average person lives about 70 years, I just turned 39. I'm on the southbound side of the hill of this life. Now, somebody hears that, you're like, I don't want to think about that, but I think about that. How many things have I been saying I will get to it later, and I've been saying it since I was 18, 19, 20 years old, and here I stand, 20 years down the road. Me and a friend were just joking. We were talking about high school. I said, man, that was 20 years ago. I said, I know. I just celebrated my 20th year out of high school. And I don't know if it was a celebration or a funeral, because it's like, oh no, 20 years. Yeah, 20 years. I looked at you and what I say? I said, brother, we are officially middle-aged. Oh my God, how did that happen? Yeah, you feel it every morning when you get up. The truth of the matter is, time is short. Our time is short. James 4:13 reads like this. Says, now listen, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to this city or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money. He said, why do you? He said, why? You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. We make plans for things and we don't even know if we'll get to see it happen. He said, what is your life? Somebody look at your neighbor and ask them right now, what is your life? What is your life? I think about that. What is becoming of my life? How am I doing in life? He said, you are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. I want you to think about it when the apostles were saying that Jesus was coming soon. It was 2,000 years ago. Many people over time begin to think, man, they've been saying that for years. How many of you have ever said Jesus is coming soon and somebody looked back at you and said they've been saying that for years? It's because they have a finite understanding and a finite perspective. 2,000 years ain't nothing but a couple days for Jesus. See, we have a hard time understanding those types of things. And here's what we need to do. We need to quit looking at we need to quit just focusing on that and start realizing I am not promised tomorrow. Look at your neighbor and tell him, I'm not promised tomorrow. Chris, you were just preaching so much hope this morning. It's true. It's true we're not promised tomorrow. Martin Luther said this. He said, live as though Christ died yesterday, rose today, and is returning tomorrow. Here's the question to ask yourself. What would I do differently? I want you to really ask this question to yourself. What would I do differently if I only had 30 days to live? What would I change about my life if I knew I only had 30 days to live? It's a scary prospect. Makes me look at what really matters in this world. It makes me ask the question, am I living up to the purpose that I've truly been called to? The second thing is this, is our purpose is God's plan. Our purpose is God's plan. See, a lot of us we ask ourselves, what is my purpose? And we try to fashion for ourselves what I think my purpose is, and we go after those things sometimes, and then we feel unfulfilled in going after those things. See, the true purpose is something that's in God's plan. James 4:15 says, instead you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. Instead of making up my own, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm. No, ask the question, God, is it your will? Keep that passage up there for just a second at verse 15. I've gotten to where when I'm asked, Chris, what is your opinion on such and such matter? What is your opinion on this or that thing? What do you think that I should do? I've gotten to where here, let's fleece it in prayer. And this is going to sound crazy to you because I believe in meritocracy. I believe in working hard and going after things. But the truth of the matter is, this is a part we have a hard time understanding sometimes. I say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk through the obvious door and ask God to close the doors we're not supposed to walk through. But hold on a second, Chris. The door that is harder to walk through and the door seems closed, I make more money with that one. It's got more opportunity for me. How you going to be doing with family? Well, I'm going to be traveling. Or I'm not going to be at church very much, but I'll make more money. And maybe God's looking at you and going, I'm a little more worried about your soul than your bank account. Like that's real talk for a second. It's real talk. See, this is different perspective, isn't it? And so I've started saying, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. God, make it simple. Make it so simple it seems easy. Well, Chris, what about things you'll miss out on? Listen, I'm not going to try to kick down a door that God closed. Come on, look at your neighbor and say, don't kick down doors God closed. So ask him, God, show me the way. Show me the way. So he goes on. He says, as it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. He said, you boast in your arrogant schemes. He says, all such boasting is evil. You know, here's what I'm going to do. I tell you what I'm going to do. How many times have we heard that before? Man, my wife has probably heard so many times. If that dude said that to me. Yeah, you ever seen that before? I've seen it before where something happens and somebody does something to somebody. I'm sitting there biting, gritting my teeth. Shut your mouth, Chris. I get in the car and look at Jamie and say, tell you what, if he talked like that to me. I told the story. Matter of fact, I didn't even get to talk to him this morning. One of my best friends was in the room in the early service this morning. Their whole family was in visiting. And he's the one that was in the deal. And my dad talked crazy to me one time. We got in the car and he looked at me and said, Psh, I wouldn't let him talk to me like that. I said, you wouldn't? He said, no, I'd let him slide. That's a big dude. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. When we boast in our, let me tell you how great I am. One of my other friends was in church this morning. I played football with him in high school, and he was an excellent linebacker and played running back too. Phenomenal football player. He coaches now, and he was in early service, and we were talking after service. And I said, man, I went back and I watched some film of us the other day from 2003, dude, playing at Waco ISD in the playoffs in the quarterfinals. He said, oh man, I remember that game good. I said, yeah. He said, what do you think going back and watching it after all these years? I said, I realized how horrible I actually was. I thought I was great, man. I said, I picked myself apart, dude. I watched, man, that was a weak block, dude. You let him roll up. Come on, man, what was that right there? You should have pancaked him, right? Picked it apart. Why? Because I thought I was so great, but in hindsight, now that I got a little more understanding, I look back and go, you was all right. Perspective. And so he said, all such boasting is evil. Verse 17, he said, if anyone then knows the good that they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. Oh, what do you mean? Like you know better. How many times have you been told you know better than that? Man, when I was a kid, I got a lot of that kind of stuff. You know better than that. Yes, you were right. I do know better. See, God is trying to show you more in your life. He's trying to bring you to new places. But the truth is, we got to start realizing some things. There is a purpose for my life, and there is a plan for my life. Mark Twain said this. He said, the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. You should ask yourself the question this morning, do I know and am I living God's purpose for my life? Do I know what God's purpose is? And am I living up to it? Because if I know what his purpose is and I'm not living it, James is implying right here for you, if you don't know what you ought to do, if you know what you ought to do and you don't do it, it is sin for them. It is sin for them. Don't worry. I know this morning a lot of you are like, man, thanks. On Thanksgiving week, you're making me very unthankful for some things. No, it's going to close good this morning. Listen to me. The third thing is this. Third ingredient is our possessions are not our own. Our possessions are not our own. That's right. It does not belong to me. Look at all this stuff I have. I told y'all about that last week. I ran into an old friend one time and said, how's life going? And he began to tell me how big his house was and how expensive it was. And he began to tell me how much money he was making now. And I literally wanted to look at him and go, nice. How are you? Because, buddy, you ain't telling me nothing, right? What do you mean? What do you mean? Because you can attain all those things, but the fact of the matter is, Chris, I paid my mortgage off. I got my house. Don't pay your property taxes. Do you still have it, right? Well, I own my car. Yeah, don't register it. Get pulled over a few times, and after getting pulled over a few times, see if you still have it or if they have it down at the impound, right? Like I really got to get a hold of the concept that, listen, man, my possessions are not my own. As a matter of fact, my kids are not my own. We were talking about this the other day, and the girls and I, we were talking about different things, and we overheard a statement made, and they were sitting there as I was listening to a news anchor say, the problem is that parents think that they own their children, and we got to quit looking at it that way, and we got to start looking at it like, those children belong to all of us, and we want them to better the world. And I said, I beg to differ. And they said, that's right, Dad, because we belong to you. I said, not even me. She said, what do you mean? I said, you belong to God, and I am the steward of you, and it's my job to make sure that God's will is done in your life. I'm not interested in the will of this world. I'm interested in God's will for your life. Therefore, there's things that we don't do because I know it's not going to be good for you in the long run. But everybody else is doing it. I don't care. I don't care. I want you to find God's will for your life. You belong to Him. James 5:1-6 says, now listen, you rich people. Now I'm going to pause right here because somebody in the room when I said that said, oh, he's not talking to me. Yeah, you know what I mean, right? Somebody in the room thought, he's not talking to me. He's talking to people that got a couple $100,000 in the bank, right? Right? And then there's somebody's got a couple $100,000 in the bank saying, oh, he's not talking to me. He's talking to people that got $1 million. Y'all see where this is going? And then the millionaire is saying, he's not talking to me. He's talking to people with $100 million. And then the people with $100 million say, he's talking to those people that are billionaires. Perspective. Because I'm going to throw a curveball at you. You ready? If you live in the United States, you are in the richest 10% of the world. On average, you were in the richest. Oh man, I don't know about. Yeah, I can tell you that. Like I've seen homeless people in foreign countries. They don't look they're struggling. They're skinnier than everybody else. America is one of the only places that you will go and see somebody standing on the sidewalk with a sign that says, "Help me eat today," and they're about 100 pounds overweight. Chris, that is uncool to you. No, it's just the truth. It's the truth. We're doing pretty good. So when I hear this, I think me. Like he's talking to me as an American. And I'm going to show you something in just a second that's going to excite you. Listen to this. He says, you rich people weep and wail because the misery that is coming on you. What if I said that the rich people here he's speaking to, it's not about how much is in their bank account, but it's about their mentality. It's about their perspective on things. There are people who their whole identity is in their riches, and there are people that their identity is in purpose. You see what I'm saying? So he goes on. He says, your wealth is rotted, and moths have eaten your clothes. Verse 3, he says, your gold and silver are corroded. In other words, over time, it's not even going to matter. Like if you don't believe that, I don't know if I've said this on a Sunday or not. One time a few years ago, how many of you guys invested in Bitcoin? Let me see people in the room that's invested in Bitcoin. Those are the smart people in the room, right? How many of you guys have ever invested in silver? I'm the only idiot. Okay, no, there's a few more in the room, all right. What do you mean by idiot? There is nothing wrong with investing in silver, but one time I had a little $1,000. I was a youth pastor at the time, so that was a lot of money for me. That's still a lot of money, but anyways. And I remember I'm going to invest this money. So sort of looking where I invest, you can never go wrong investing in metals. And so I went and invested in $1,000 in silver. And I was like, man, this is going to pay. I walked away with my silver. I felt like Judas for like a split second. That was dark. Anyways. And so I'm so pumped about it. But I remember at the same time listening to this guy named Max Kaiser and another guy named Gerald Salente from Trends magazine. And these are guys who give investment advice. And these are kind of not guys you would see on MSNBC, CNN, Fox News. These are different dudes. These are guys that are they do some crazy. And they were talking about something called Bitcoin. See, they could see bigger. I want to throw this at you. You ready? I look back to see when that time was. Bitcoin was about 75 cents a coin at the time. 75 cents. Now, if you in the room don't understand what I'm about to say, see, we put our trust in things like, what did he say right there? My gold and silver are corroded. Like, we put our trust in things, these possessions. Y'all, Bitcoin turned over $90,000 a coin the other day. If I would have invested $1,000 in Bitcoin at that same time, I'd be a multi-millionaire right now. Now, I know somebody in the room's like, well, okay, cool, dude. What does that mean? Because things change in this world and what you put your trust in. When you're just focused on this world, what you put your trust in today can change tomorrow. Bitcoin could drop to 75 cents again just that quick. See, my focus is not on the things of this world. Their corrosion will testify against you and eat your flesh like fire. You have hoarded wealth in the last days. In other words, how many people do we see right now who are past age of expected age lifespan, and they're still hoarding to themselves? Why? Because when I die, what am I going to do with it? I don't know, but I just want to have all this stuff. He said, look, the wages you failed to pay the workers who mowed your fields are crying out against you. Chris, that doesn't apply to me. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord Almighty. Pause right there. Keep it there, Jolene. He said, the wages you failed to pay the workers who mowed your fields are crying out against you. And this right here, stop right there. There's something more in this than just people mowing fields. I mean, a lot of us in this room, we like shopping. Anybody here have a child who's around 10 or 11 years old? Or can you remember when your kids were around 10 or 11? Okay, see you. You know what happens? They get a $10 bill in their pocket, and what happens? Oh, I got to spend that money. I got one yesterday. She still has $10 left. And she's like, Dad, I want to come with you to Walmart. I was like, why? I have $10. I'm like, won't you just save that $10? It'll turn into 20. Like if you just keep on collecting, you know. I got another one, though. She's a hoarder, right? She actually has a counter. She has a money counter. When you slide the coins in, she has over $100 in her little deal. And I asked her, when are you going to spend it? She said, not going to spend it. I'm like, yeah, this is the one I'm going to stay close to because when I'm old, she's going to take care of me. Right? This is the one. That's my girl. And there we go. The other one acts a little more like me. She gets $1 in her pocket. She's got to spend that thing. The story goes, we get to Walmart and she's so ready. She's like, Dad, I want to get this thing. No, you know what? I want this. And I looked at her and I said, baby, that stuff is junk. Why do you care about it? So she picks out her junk to get up there. And we get up there to pay out. And I ain't paying for it, Dad. Okay, well, I mean, it's literally so cheap. It's a lot of stuff for really cheap. Because on the back it has a sticker. What does it say? Made in China. Anyways. And so there it is, and she's ready to pay out, and she pulls her little wallet out, she unzips it, she looks at me, she goes, "Oh, Dad, my bad." I said, "What do you mean, my bad?" She goes, "I only have $7. "Here, Dad, I tell you what, we'll put that in there and pay for it, and then you can pay the rest." Oh, the faith of this child. "Bless thou, soul, my daughter." I said, "You know what? Let me show you, Dad. Let me show you faith, though. You ready? You know what, baby? Keep your money." Swipe. Because really it wasn't that much. It was a lot of junk for not very much. What are you talking about, Chris? I don't know if you guys realize it. We like Amazon. Anybody like Amazon in the room this morning? Yeah. Who likes Temu? Oh, yes. Love that Temu. I said this in first service, and somebody come up to me after church. They showed me their T-shirt, said Temu. How about that? I said, that's cool. You get something for $60. For 60 cents on Temu. They even got the little roll thing, you get the discount. That's all cool, right? What are you talking about? Why does this matter, Chris? Because at the same time that we are actually buying all these goods from said somebody got it. We're seeing news reports come across that they're using slave labor to make these goods for us. Yeah. So as this hit me, man, I was like, oh, dude. I was looking at this. I was like, how does this apply? And it hit me. Oh, my Lord. The wealth has rotted the moss. Your gold and silver, he says, your treasure, you have hoarded wealth in the last days. Look, your wages, you failed to pay the workers who mowed your lawn. Well, Chris, I didn't do that. No, we created the demand for it. So you have lived on earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You see, you have fattened yourselves in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the innocent one who was not opposing you. He's speaking there to the Jewish ones, I think. He's telling them, you've killed the one who's Jesus. You killed him. But this morning, I want to actually say to you, River City, you've lived toward the purpose, not the stuff. This church has given so much over the past years that I'm starting to get people, you know, you did something. The church did something when you start getting missionaries saying, hey, can I get on a Zoom call with you? I got to talk to you for a minute. Why? Because I got to tell you about something that we were able to do with what you've given tens of thousands of dollars this year to a ministry in Eastern Europe. You've given tens of thousands of dollars over the years in Myanmar. You've given, and you've made it. Come on, give yourself a hand because you've actually done something that leans more toward purpose. So I'm not picking on you this morning. I'm here to tell you, keep moving in that direction. Why? Because we're making a difference in the world. I don't want to hoard up. Why? Because when I start getting a hold of God's ways of doing things, I start opening my hands and handing out there so that God can, listen, I got an open hand policy with the way I do things. What do you mean? As fast as God can give it to me, God, I'm willing to give it where you want me to give it. And when I do that, God starts saying, okay, here's a bunch more for you because you'll do with what I give you what I want you to do with it. That's a Dr. Seuss deal there. There you go. You can think about it later. I just want to show you something because I was on a call Friday, a Zoom call Friday with one of our ministries, some of our friends from England who actually said, hey, we want to talk to you for a second because we were going through our numbers and we saw some things. And I'll tell you that story in just a second, but just watch this for just a minute.
Hey to everybody at River City Church. My name's Becky Murray and I'm the founder of One by One, an organisation that is passionate about ending exploitation and seeing an end to slavery in our day and age. I want to send a huge thank you to you guys because this Christmas you've chosen One by One as one of the organisations that you want to support with your legacy giving. I want to say a huge thank you. We are stepping out in faith in a huge way. This year we committed to opening our first ever crisis centre, which will open in Jinja, Uganda in summer of 2025. Well, we now have a building that we've managed to secure, but now the real work begins as we get the building purpose ready for the crisis centre. And so we now need to furnish it, get it all ready, get the dormitories, the games room, the counselling rooms, get everything ready so that we can take these young girls in and rescue them out of human trafficking, seeing them set free. We're going to employ some of the best trauma therapists in the country to really see these girls healed and set free once and for all. We cannot do this without churches like you. So huge thank you for being a part of this and extending mercy to these young girls in Uganda. I cannot wait to come out in 2025 and see you guys in person and be with you. And hey, who knows, maybe 2025 or 2026, you guys will be coming out with me to Kenya or Uganda and see the work firsthand. But until then, I wanted to send this video to say thank you, because truly we cannot do it without people like you. So please, this Christmas, help us to extend him. Thank you. And let's see the Mercy Centre opened and these girls rescued out of trafficking. Thank you.
Come on, man. Can we give God the honor for that? He contacted me and Matt was like, hello, friend. He has he's a cool accent. I can't do it. You know, they pick on us for our accents and I pick on them for it. And we're talking for a minute and he says, Chris, I needed to get on with you for a second. Becky and I wanted to get on with you for a second. I want to tell you, we were going through our numbers and we realized your church has been a very solid giver over the last, you've given nearly close to $20,000 since you, come on man, that is awesome. Since you started supporting us. And he said, we have churches that pledged money and didn't. You guys don't pledge money. You just send it and you keep sending it and it's making a difference. I want to stop here for just a second because I want to show you something, because you have something to not take earthly pride in, but something to be proud of as a church. In Russia this past few years, we've given just about $20,000 so that around 2,000 people have ended up with Bibles. They've actually built a drug recovery center right on the border of Russia and Belarus, where people are coming to Jesus, having their lives completely turned around, where families are getting food during Christmas time for their families to eat. And you see some of the pictures we've shown in the past. Hey, that's because you've gotten a hold of an eternal perspective and you said, hey, I want to make a difference in this world. Come on, one more time. Can we give God honor for that? Why does this stuff matter? Because it doesn't belong to me. No, man, I'm a steward of this. How can I be a blessing with my blessings? That's the question that we ask ourselves. The fourth thing is this: our trials are temporary. Our trials are temporary. Look at your neighbor and say, our trials are temporary. See, a lot of us in the room, we opened this series with trials and temptations. I want you to know something. It's almost over. You're almost through it. Somebody in the room this morning, you're going through something, you're facing a situation, and I want to tell you something. Just a little while longer, you keep on standing and you persevere. James 5:7-11 says, be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. He says, see how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. He said, you too, be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. It's coming. He's coming soon. Don't grumble against one another, brothers and sisters, or you will be judged. What do you mean? Don't grumble. Listen, don't come. I told somebody that my kids, I'm just going to be real for a second. Y'all got kids too. Sometimes your kids get in the car and they start talking about, oh my God. I got all girls, so that's what it sounds like in my car. Oh my God. What? You're not going to believe what so-and-so did today in Sunday school. Finally, I've gotten to where I just go, hey, I don't want to hear it. Why? Because if you're going to talk crap about I just said a bad word. If you're going to talk mess about your friends, all right, I don't want to hear it. Why? And when I went, why, Dad? I said, because be their friend. Don't talk about them behind their back. Yeah. And then I get home and I go, one of them walks in and goes, Dad, oh my God. I say, what? Guess what your other daughter did? We can't help it. It's like we do it to each other. We'll smile right in that face, boy. Turn around, get in the car. Oh my God. Seriously. Don't grumble against one another. He says, brothers and sisters, you will be judged. The judge is standing at the door. Verse 10, he goes on and he says, brothers and sisters, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. In verse 11, he says, as you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. But you, Chris, you don't know what that person did to me. You don't, no. You can handle it. You can handle it. You can let it go. They're going to have to say, I'm sorry before I forgive them. Just forgive them. Look at your neighbor and say, just forgive me. Yeah, hopefully that was your spouse. Yeah. He said, you have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. He said, the Lord is full of compassion and mercy. Why did I just forgive? Because I've been forgiven. I've been forgiven. 2 Corinthians 4:17-18 says, for our light affliction, which is but for a moment, is working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. He said, while we do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. Quit paying attention to the circumstances and see if you can look through them into something deeper. Goes on, he says, for the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are, say it with me, eternal. Eternal. See, so many of us get caught up on what we can see and all the wrong we see, but the real question is, can you see what Jesus is doing? Can you see what, well, I don't see him do anything. Well, here's what you need to focus on. What has he already done? I was thinking about how I would wrap this up today. I thought it's Thanksgiving. I want to wrap this up great. I want to do this right. So where does it start? And here's where it starts. As our musicians come back this morning. Gratitude produces eternal perspective. Gratitude. Look at your neighbor and say, be grateful. Now that neighbor, look back at him and say, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, what do you mean? No, hey, look, be grateful. There's no point in focusing. I can have a poverty mindset in life. I can have a mindset of eternity in life. What do you mean, man? When I get an eternal mindset, I start realizing something. Do you know who my Father is? Do you know who my Father is? Do you know that he owns it all? And do you know that I will inherit this one day? And going back to what was said earlier, that I can either aim for earth and get none of it, or I can aim for heaven and get all of it. Come on, is there some people in the room that say, I want to aim for heaven and get it all? So it starts at gratitude. Closing scriptures today and to move away from James for a minute. Psalms 107. This is David. David wrote this one, and he's talking about some things, some afflictions, some problems. Talk about a guy who's been through it. Yeah, he's done some wrong. He's also had to endure some things. Falsely accused, attacked constantly by his predecessor. He said, oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. He's good. Somebody in the room needs to hear this morning. You just need to know that he's good first and foremost. Well, Chris, I don't know. I got some things going on. No, just establish in your life he is good. What do we always say? God is good and all the time. Why do I say that? Because I want to establish it in the room. I want to establish it in this room this morning. He's always good, no matter what. For his mercy endures forever. He said, let the redeemed of the Lord say so. Say so. I am redeemed. I am redeemed. Oh. Y'all remember that song? First service, everybody remember that. Some of you may not have ever heard that in this one. Yeah, we used to sing a song, let the redeemed of the Lord say so. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so. Y'all remember that? Oh man, then we would go into it, and then we hit the bridge. I am redeemed. I am redeemed. Oh. I can't do that anymore, but yeah, I am redeemed. And the place would go nuts. Why? Because if you do nothing else for me, God, I am redeemed. I am redeemed. Redeemed of the Lord say so, whom he has redeemed from the hand of the enemy. He opens it with that, and then he closes it with this. Oh, I like this. 40 verses later, he says, yet he sets the poor. Going through all these things and all these problems, he ends it with, yet. Somebody look at somebody and say, yet. Why does that matter? Because somebody's sitting here and somebody's told you, why do you keep doing all that? Why are you praying all the time? God hadn't come through for you. Look at him and say, yet. There's so many different directions I can go from yet. He hasn't come through for me yet, but he will. He hasn't come through for me yet. Heaven is my home. He hasn't come through for me yet. I have joy, peace, and contentment through all of this. See, the realization. Listen to me for just a minute. Yet he sets the poor on high, far from affliction, and makes their families like a flock. He said, the righteous see it and rejoice, and all iniquity stops its mouth. In other words, the redemption of God and the saying so of his redemption shuts the mouth of the naysayers. And then in verse 43, he says, whoever is wise will observe these things, and they will understand the loving kindness of the Lord. I want to go back to something for a second. He says, far from affliction, he sets the poor on high, far from affliction. It makes their families like a flock. I was asking Jamie the other day, we were riding down the road, and we saw a Chevy Astro. Anybody remember those Chevrolet Astro vans? Oh, yeah. Hadn't seen one in a while. I said, Jamie, look, it's an Astro. And she said, why does it matter? I said, I haven't seen one in forever. For some of you, generationally, it was the wood panel side vans. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And you know, maybe you were in that family that would show up to church and everybody knew they didn't have much, but the side door would slide open and out would come kids smiling, happy. Why? Because they understood something. I got my family close to me. I got what really matters. Come on, man. I got what really matters. That's what matters. So this morning, maybe you're saying, Chris, I'm having a hard time seeing this eternal perspective and having gratitude. Look, no. Count your blessings, not your shortcomings. Look at your neighbor and say, count your blessings, not your shortcomings, as you stand all over the room this morning. So how do we end this week? Next week is going to be an altar week, and maybe this morning somebody needs a personal altar moment as our leaders step down for a second. If you need prayer, we're here for prayer for you this morning. But maybe there's somebody in the room this morning that simply says, what do I do? Here's what I want to ask you as we close our eyes all over the room. Where do I need to invite God's power to do a work in my life? Where am I doubting at right now? Would you ask yourself the question, where am I doubting at right now? Where am I struggling at right now? And do a little thought experiment with you. Can you tell God thank you even in that spot right now? Somebody open your mouth, maybe under your breath, you just want to whisper it, but tell him, thank you, even right there in that shortcoming. Thank you right there in that struggle. Come on, as our eyes are closed all over the room, there's somebody here right now that says, yeah, I'm doing that right now. Chris, will you just lift a hand up right now? Just lift a hand up. Beautiful, beautiful. Look at that. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of us. I'm with you. Thank you, even in that spot, even in that painful place. Thank you, because I know you're working this together for my good. Can we all join them right now with our hands lifted? In Jesus' name. We're just going to pray a prayer together. God, first we start on this Thanksgiving week saying, as we enter in, we want to have an eternal perspective and an eternal attitude toward what I do in this world. We lift our hands in thanks.